just wanted to create this video as a whole guide on what this class is, talk about every skill and the way I play it. This whole thing is probably going to be too much info, but if there's a chance that you learn something from the class while watching this, then I think I have achieved the goal of this video. Let's start off with the first job skills. We start off with Orbital Flame. This is your main attack. It has 4 directions. It can technically, it's 3, where it's forward, up and down, but I like to consider left and right, and up and down is all 4. So you can also hold this down for volleying. You can see here. We have Firewalk. This is your main flash jump. I made an entire video on this thing. It is not dark sight. Even if visually it looks like it, you cannot block debris or anything that dark sight does. You have an up jump by holding up and jump. You also have your standard flash jump. We also have Fire Repulsion. This is basically Magic Guard. Every time you take damage, it uses more MP than HP. Flame Elemental, it's a buff that gives you 10 more magic attack for 8 seconds as long as you're in combat. So when I attack, you see this little guy. He's giving me 10 more attack as long as I am just attacking. We also have Natural Talent, which gives more MP. Flame Bite is a not used skill. Interestingly enough, you can use this in the air, but we don't use this. Let's move on to the second job. We have Greater Orbital Flame. It's just an upgraded, so now you can use 2 orbital flames at once. We have Flame Vortex. This is not used. We have Orbital Explosion. This is a toggle that you turn on. Whenever you use Orbital Flame, Phoenix Drive, Orbital Inferno, or Inferno Sphere, and land 10 times, the next Orbital Flame type skill does more damage. So basically it's just passive damage. You don't have to worry about optimizing this at all. This is just leave it on. So, and it just does more damage. So yeah. We also have Controlled Burn. This is a skill you can use to restore mana. So if I press this, you can see the effect and I get all my mana back. I've heard Blaze Wizards having issues with mana. If you want to use this whenever it's up, you can. Usually we have a mana steal. You can see the passive effects with MP absorb. So this is basically MP steal. Every time you attack the boss or enemies, you get your MP back. So usually you shouldn't have to run out of mana. They fixed the class a lot better now. The only cases I would use this is during dojo, when you can't use potions and you need mana back in case you use too many skills. That's the only time I would use it. We have Greater Flame Elemental, which is the upgraded version of this. 28 magic attack. Word of Fire, crit rate and attack speed. Spell Control, this is more magic mastery and more attack speed. Flashfire is one of our most important skills. It is the only mobility we actually have. It's basically honestly a worse version of Bowmaster and Marksman. You place this down, no matter where you go, you can TP back to it when you cast it again, and you have to place it again to use it. So yeah, let's move on to third job. So we have Grand Orbital Flame, lets you shoot 3 of them now, and also more importantly, on the 4th Orbital Flame, you actually get an enhanced version. So if I shoot this 3 times, 1, 2, 3, you'll see a bigger version come out. So yeah, again, you don't have to optimize these things. If you're always just shooting, it just comes out and then you're good to go. Flame Tempest is actually a push skill. You can only use it on the ground, but this is only used for Oz. People don't really run that anymore. It's not really used. Cinder Maelstrom is our bind. It has a 3-minute cooldown. Usually everyone opts for Urda Nova maxed, which is a 2-minute. And this thing can miss. I can cast it without any enemies here. So if, let's say, you're fighting Lotus and he disappears and you use it, it's gone. That's why everyone usually opts for Urda Nova as well. This thing is a 3-minute cooldown. Even less reason to really use it. It's only practically good for phasing a boss. You want to bind and then burst it, and then the next phase you use Urda Nova. If you're going to use this, do take the extra second to line up the bind, make sure the boss isn't going to TP away or anything, because this thing will miss, so be careful. Phoenix Run is our class self door. How this works is you cast it based on buff duration. You get a long buff with a long cooldown as well, like a 30-minute cooldown. How it works is when you die, you get TP back, like a few meters back, and you actually get some iframes a little bit, but it's not the best thing to rely on. It does not stack with Door, so you can use Door first, and then if you have both buffs, Door and Phoenix Run, it'll use Door and then Phoenix Run. Phoenix Run is not the most reliable thing because it can put you in a worse position since it backs you up, and then you could just die after that. So be careful when using this. But what I like to do is strategize if I'm doing a struggle boss or I'm progging. I like to pop this like 20 minutes before the boss run, and then by the time I'm inside the boss I can pop it again. So I'll have 2 Phoenix runs while bossing, so it's pretty useful. Grand Flame Elemental, another buff. We have Liberated Magic, which is a final damage buff, passive. This is crit damage, passive, and crit rate. And we have Int with knockback resist for Brilliant Enlightenment. Let's go over 4th job now. We start with Call of Cygnus, which is our Maple Warrior. I always have this on. It can be auto buffed. We have Cygnus Knight's Will, which is basically Hero's Will. We have Final Orbital Flame, the 4th job version. We have Blazing Extinction. So how Blazing Extinction works is when you cast this, it has a 5-second cooldown, and it just moves. This thing will hit every nearby mob. Here's an example of Blazing Extinction. So if you see, if I put Blazing Extinction here, it's going to hit every nearby mob around itself. Pretty good for mobbing, really strong. I think for bossing is that it kind of leaves. So a lot of the time when you're bossing, this thing is really just going to leave the boss and it's not going to hit it that much. So it lasts for 10 seconds. You can recast it every 5 seconds. You only recast it when you need to. It also bounces off of walls. So if I were to cast it here, you can see that it bounces back. This is good for, again, if an enemy is near the wall, or if you can try to position yourself near the wall and just start doing this, and then it'll have more uptime on the boss if they're near the wall. Another thing I wanted to talk about with Blazing Extinction is that generally if you're near the edge of a surface, you can't cast. You see, it says here it cannot be used here. So you need space to cast Blazing Extinction. Blazing Extinction is affected by gravity. It will fall over time. So this can affect when you're bossing, let's say Lucid, and you're in the middle, the Blazing Extinction is going to fall off the platform. So you need to be wary of that. Another thing is, even if I'm at the edge of the platform here and there's another platform, if there is space for Blazing Extinction to spawn, it will just spawn and then work as intended. So this is a very popular rotation in Shangri-La Spring 4, where people would stand here and just let Blazing Extinction kill the entire right side while you kill the whole left side. So let's start with Fires of Creation. There's 2 modes to it. So when you press Fires of Creation by itself, you get a lion. If you hold down and press Fires of Creation, you'll get a fox. These passively give you 30% IED while it's up. You can't use auto buff on it, so you'll have to recast it every time it's down. There is no cooldown on it, so you can just keep recasting it. It's not too bad. Let's talk about the Orbital Flame. So when you summon Fires of Creation, your Orbital Flames will change. Lion as is will be the same, but when you change the fox, you'll get this new Orbital Flame. So how it works is when you attack an enemy, you'll land a debuff on it with minus 10% elemental resistance, which can translate to a certain percent of final damage. So make sure that you're in fox form in parties and for yourself, and you're attacking the boss. Make sure that you proc it with Orbital Flame to give it the debuff of elemental resist. And also, the more you attack it, you'll see these stacks that go up over time. And these stacks are important for Towering Inferno. So for Towering Inferno, how it works is if I were to press it in fox mode, it shoots out the fox ahead of itself, and based on the amount of stacks that's on the enemy, it'll do more damage. So ideally you want 5 stacks to do the most damage. Otherwise you should hold it, if so, or unless you really need to push damage, then you can. But I would recommend trying to max out the stacks on the boss or enemy before using this thing. The lion mode of Towering Inferno is simply an AoE. So if I were to press it here, you can see It's a simple AoE. This is better for mobbing to hit an area around you. But yeah, so that is Towering Inferno in Final Orbital Flame based on the Fires of Creation. One important thing about the Fires of Creation active skills is that, let's say that you're in Lion mode and you want to use the Fox mode's Towering Inferno. What you can do is that you can hold down and press the Towering Inferno, and what it'll do, it'll use the other animal's active skill. This applies to all of the Fires of Creation moves, so Towering Inferno and Savage Flame. So if I were in Fox mode, if I want to use the Towering Inferno for Lion, I would hold down and press Towering Inferno in Fox mode to use the Lion's mode, while still being in Fox mode. So the next buff we have, this is one of the most important buffs for our class and for your party if you're playing this class. It's Burning Conduit. So this thing has a 30-second duration with a 45-second cooldown. What it does is it puts a field on the ground and you get 60% more damage and attack speed +1. This is important because, well, 60% damage for your whole party is pretty good. Anyone who's standing on the field will get the same buffs. You yourself do not have to stand on this thing. You can be off of it and the buff will still apply based on the amount of buff duration you have. So ideally you want at least 40% to have 100% buff duration, 100% uptime on Burning Conduit. So yeah, this thing is really good you want to play around your party. So if your party's bursting on a certain spot, you want to place Burning Conduit on top of them and communicate with when and where you're placing it down. Another note about Burning Conduit is that if I were to place Burning Conduit on the ground and then move to a different map, as you can see in my buff bar, I still have the active effect. And if I were to move to a different map, you can see that the Burning Conduit is still applicable. This is useful in solo bossing. So before you go into the boss or you're going to another phase, you can put down the Burning Conduit and then go into the next phase, and you'll be ready to fight the boss with the Burning Conduit effects. Our next skill is Flame Barrier. This thing is somewhat useful. It's very niche. This thing does not negate damage, but it will stop debilitating status conditions. So if I pop it, the next 20 blocks or 20 hits towards my character, so things like Lotus debris where it's falling atop of me and stuns, it will not affect me. I will still get hit and take damage, but if let's say I'm bursting and I get hit, then this will prevent me from getting stunned and I can continue attacking. We have Final Flame Elemental, 40 attack whenever you're attacking, very strong. We have Pure Magic, which is more mastery and final damage, and we have Wild Blaze, which is more knockback resistance. So yeah, that is the 4th job skills. Let's move on to the hyper skills. So for the hyper skills, we have Cataclysm. This is our iframe. It's a 100-second cooldown iframe. So if I press it, you'll see the cool effect. I can actually move around near the last seconds of it if I need to, and I'll still be iframed until the end of the animation. But yeah, it's a very straightforward 100-second iframe. We have Glory of the Guardians. This is that generic 10% buff that most classes get. Cygnus Knights and Mihal can receive the same effects. So we also have Phoenix Drive. This is a new skill after Ignition. How this works is when you press it, you get a 15-second buff that will give you way more balls. It's very fun based on the mode that you choose. You can see you shoot out way more balls. And if I go to Fox mode, you can also see this straightforward mode too. Very fun to use, very strong. So yeah, let's talk about the passive skills. Let's dismiss the boss here, and let's use this rock as lineup for where I'm standing. So the passive skill that I want to talk about is the Orbital Flame range. How this works is you toggle it on. This is along with the rest of your toggles too. So to compare, this will increase the range of your Orbital Flame, right? Let's see without it. If we do regular Orbital Flame, it stops around this mark in the middle of the staircase. If I turn it on, it's gonna go way farther. This is very useful. Try to always have this on. So for 5th jobs, we'll start with Orbital Inferno. How this works is it is a gigantic orbital flame. Same thing with the directions. You can shoot it upwards and downwards. Pretty good skill. I always just pop this whenever I'm not bursting. Just a note, based on the direction that you shoot the Orbital Inferno, it'll do more damage, right? Because it's on the boss for longer. So if I were to shoot it forward, for example, you can see it stops and it hits again. But if I were to shoot it upwards, you can see I get way more lines doing that. Usually when I'm on top of a boss, I'll start shooting and shooting upwards to make sure I get way more procs. The orbital flames don't matter, actually. You can shoot this straight and it'll do the same thing. But for the Orbital Inferno, make sure that it's shooting up. Which is why I tend to hold up and just shoot, because I'm already holding up for Orbital Inferno anyways. But, I mean, yeah. That's how that works. The next skill we have is, let's start with Salamander Mischief. This is a buff where it summons a salamander for 60 seconds. And what it does is when you attack, it'll come and attack with you. You can see it bouncing over and over. And you can see this number next to the salamander. And based on the amount of times that it bounces, at the end of its duration, it'll give a 30-second buff of magic attack. So the more bounces it gets, the more magic attack it'll give you for 30 seconds. And after those 30 seconds are up, the salamander will be up again for its 90-second cooldown. So it's pretty much a 60-second and then a 30-second, and then it rotates from there. So that is Salamander Mischief. Next skill we have is Savage Flame. So to explain Savage Flame, it has 2 modes. When you attack a monster, you see here, when the boss is hit 25 times, or an enemy is defeated by it, not just the boss, with a direct skill attack. So if I use Orbital Flame, it'll generate 1 flame charge, up to 6, right? So you can see here, we already generated some flame charge, and based on the amount of flame charges, affects the skill's performance. With the Lion mode, what happens with flame charge when I use Savage Flame, you need to have at least 2 flame charges to use these skills. If I were to use the Lion mode, you can see it shoots a one-time forward big AoE, cool nuke skill. And you can see when I charge the skill, it takes a while for these charges to come up. So now that we're 2 charges again, after hitting it a few times, every 25 attacks it'll give us another charge. So the Fox mode, how this works is when you shoot it, it'll prioritize the boss and shoot tons of flame balls that will bounce over and over on the same target. So the more charges that you have, the more times the Fox balls will bounce. I can show you an example if we have tons of normal monsters instead with unlimited HP. So if I were to generate these flame charges, you can see the more monsters there are, the easier it is to charge up Savage Flame. So if I were to send Savage Flame out now, you'll see that it's bouncing between multiple targets. This has a very short expiration time. So if you're mobbing with this and it one-shots all the mobs and there's nothing you'll find, more often than not, by the next mob spawn cycle, these things will expire. So yeah, that is Savage Flame. The last skill I want to talk about is Inferno Sphere. So how this works is, you can see on my buff bar, there's 10 charges here. Inferno Sphere is what I like to call a modular burst. How it works is a key down skill. So for every second that you're holding it down, it uses 1 charge, and it takes 12 seconds to get back 1 charge, up to 10 charges in total. I can show you here. So if I hold it down, this is one of our main bossing skills. You can see I've used 6 charges already. It does recharge while you're using it, so you can get an extra charge or 2 while you're bursting. If you use it in the air, what happens is you get super armor, so anything that pushes you, it won't stop. You get to basically burst the whole time. So I only recommend really using this in the air, and it's also a good air stall too, right? Similar to Blink. This is, if you really need to, you can use this in the air to make sure you don't land. So things like if you're fighting Lotus or something and you're going to fall, Sometimes it's always good to not always have to save this for burst. Sometimes you need to just air stall, right? So yeah. So I want to explain why this burst is so special. Because of how the cooldown works, essentially the longer you wait, the more burst you have, and you're able to use it early. The full amount of time Inferno Sphere takes to go from 0 to 10 stacks is 2 minutes, which means overall our class is a 2-minute burst class. However, we can also fit into parties as a 3-minute class. The reason why is because with the extra minute, we're allowed to use up to 5 stacks of Inferno Sphere. And with the Angelic Buster Link skill change, we can combo our 5 stacks with the Link skill. And by the time 3 minutes have passed, we'll still have our full 10 stacks and all of our cooldowns for the burst. That is why Blaze Wizard is both a 2-minute and a 3-minute class. Should be it for 5th job. Let's talk about 6th job now. The main thing we have is Hexa Orbital Flame. What this does is, as you can see throughout the video, that makes your balls much bigger. It has also this flame pillar that is denoted its cooldown from the buff bar up here and also the skills here. You'll see that once it's up, the skill icon here changes. So if I were to press it, it'll shoot out a big line of flame columns. It'll, no matter what direction of orbital flame that you shoot in, it'll always just be in front of your character. So if I shoot it, you can see even though I shot it upwards, Hexa Orbital Flame still shoots forward. This skill is good if you max out your Hexa Orbital Flame with a cooldown hat, but in general, if you can position yourself just near the boss, forward, you don't have to worry too much about the damage on this unless you're optimizing. Then you want to position yourself near the boss. So yeah. Our origin skill is Eternity. How this works is when I press it, it'll do a 5-second cutscene with a lot of damage in the cutscene, and then afterwards it'll spawn a big phoenix in the background that will deal damage over time for 30 seconds. So to demonstrate, here's the cutscene. You can see the phoenix itself doesn't do any actual hitbox damage. It's only doing this damage over time effect on all the bosses and monsters in the map. This is extremely good for mobbing. It's extremely good for bossing. Pretty strong skill. So to quickly demonstrate what's most likely going to happen when you're attacking in a realistic bossing setting, you're going to be moving around, try not to get hit. You probably Orbital Inferno them. You're going to Orbital Flame to get the debuffs, and then what's going to happen is you're going to bind, you're going to pop your 60s, and then using Inferno Sphere stacks. And then once all your stacks are gone, you're going to use Phoenix Drive from a safe distance. This is what's usually is going to happen, just because the boss is going to be unpredictable and you don't have time to set up all this stuff. For example, if you're doing Kalos, you're not going to use all your Phoenix Drive stacks and then use Inferno Sphere. You're going to use Inferno Spheres first. If I have a lot of time, I use Phoenix Drive and then Inferno Sphere. If I don't have much time to burst, I'll use Inferno Sphere and burst with the party. So I also wanted to explain how I, in general, just flash jump in Orbital Flame. So how Orbital Flame works when it returns to you is that the moment it passes this section here, the Orbital Flame come back to where you are standing, right? Let me draw it in a diagram to show. Basically, when you, let's say this is you standing, and you have a little Orbital Flame that you're shooting away. So what's going to do is it's going to go forward and then it's going to come back to where you are, right? But basically there is a little window, time window here, where it is checking where you are. If you're actually to move a certain distance in any direction, let's say backwards in this case, the Orbital Flame will not go to where you are here, but instead it'll actually go all the way to where you are based on this time window. Theoretically speaking, if you were, let's say, here and you shoot out an Orbital Flame, and in this time window you somehow teleport to the other side of the map, then that Orbital Flame will actually go all the way over here straight. And I can show an in-game example of this. This only works in the line mode. As you can see, when it comes back, Fox mode will never come back. It's always going to be straightforward. Let's say I put my Flashfire here and I throw it in for Orbital Inferno. It'll actually come back to where I'm here, not on the fountain. Right? So, to demonstrate again. The timing is tight, but if you do it correctly, it'll actually come back to you. This is very niche, but I just wanted to show this as an extreme example. As you can see, it traveled across the whole map because I teleported before that time window happened. So, yeah. So how I flash jump around in Orbital Flame, this is something I do that I don't know if other people do at all, but what I do is when I'm flash jumping, I actually turn around and do a lot of reversals like this. The reason why I do this is because of that whole returnal thing with Orbital Flame. When I'm flash jumping away, you can see that it travels much farther than if I were to stand still and attack. The reason why I do this is because what I'll do is I'll mob like this, where I'm constantly going backwards. My direction. I'm going forwards, but I'm facing backwards. And I'm attacking mobs behind me while also doing a front one. Because generally when you're attacking front, you can see the amount of space you're covering with orbital flames, which is very awkward. So what I like to do is I like to back up and hit everything behind me while hitting a little bit in front of me. And generally this helps with clearing mobs. For an example, if I were to show Shangri-La, Spring 4, what I like to do is if I were to on the bottom floor and I'm clearing, I'll generally attack mobs in this fashion where I am going backwards. I'm doing reversals while shooting in both directions. Instead of attacking like this. This ensures that I'm attacking everything, both front and back. Something about Inferno Sphere as a tech I like to showcase is I call this the elevator tech, where if you hold down jump while pressing a skill, then you can actually do a falling tech. Because since how Inferno Sphere works is that you're stuck in the air or you're just on the ground attacking, you can actually fall down and use it as so. So there's some robber rotations that actually do this where you would kind of fall down and attack multiple mobs. Another tech I like to talk about is Inferno Sphere and jumping at the same time. As you can see there, I did like a moving Inferno Sphere. This is good because you can also Bhop with this. So that's like holding a neutral input and maintaining momentum. This is an example of Inferno Sphere Bhopping. You can see I was able to do a little moving forward thing with Inferno Sphere. This is good for some mobbing maps. If you were to like get on a platform and Bhop in Inferno Sphere, kill a lot of the map because the range of Inferno Sphere is so huge. So I wanted to demonstrate Flashfire and its kind of pseudo super armor tech. So if I put Flashfire down and wait for Magnus to push, I'll cut the video here, but you'll see he's gonna push and I'm gonna Flashfire at the same time. You can see I still got hit and I'm stunned, but in terms of Flashfire, the Flashfire actually prevented me from getting pushed, because what I'm doing is I'm killing all the momentum and I am basically just overriding everything to TP my position to the Flashfire. So generally if you do it right before he pushes or any push in the game, then you'll be fine. It does have a pretty tight window to it, but if you practice it, it is pretty useful. I want to showcase this Flashfire tech in Hilla, because this boss, whenever she does her blue push attack, there's two stuns, the stun and then the push, right? Either or, you can actually ignore it by flash firing. So if she were to stun me here and then I TP back, you can see I'm still stunned, but the flash fire TPs me over, so I'm in safety. Here's let's say she stuns me and she pushes me. I actually TP while she's pushing me and I'll be where I am on the flash fire. So I wanted to explain each boss and how I play against them. The strategy for each boss generally is like things for chaos pop. If you're in a position in the boss where you need to be there pretty much all times, then I generally like to place Flashfire there, right? In case I need to get away, I'll just come back to the default position and I'm always generally safe, right? So let's say I'm fighting Papulatus and he kills me, right? And I need to get back there instantly. I can always just Flashfire back, right? That's all I always generally like placing my Flashfire here. Next boss, I want to talk about something like Queen. Generally for bosses where they're staying still and you want to be behind them, I'll put the Flashfire on one side and then attack on the other. And then while let's say I'm attacking, right, I'll just TP back. Go back here and continue attacking. You know, TP back whenever in safety. So yeah. Same thing for Golux. If I'm going to generally put Flashfire on one side, TP back, and then place it down again. Go back to the other side and keep attacking. Let's talk about Lotus. How I like to do it, I think most people will. They'll put their Flashfire in the middle. They'll use Blade Extinction, all that. For AoE clear and just general attacking, you can attack upwards. Hit it like so. TP back whenever you're near the corner. And pretty much it's a pretty safe boss fight. You shouldn't really die in P1 as Blaze Wizard since you can just TP back over and over. Just be careful of the debris and all the robots putting status conditions on you. Just pretty much easily kill P1 with enough damage. So for P2, generally what I like to do is I like to put the TP in the middle. And you just really want to walk. Because the general thing about Lotus is that you do not want to... Every flash jump that you make is a commitment, right? If you make one flash jump, you can't go back. There's nothing in the air that you can do to stop yourself other than Blink and Inferno Sphere. And you need those to survive, right? So if you're going to flash jump, make sure that you have a reason to do so, right? I'm going to flash jump to get behind them, for example, right? And I'm going to keep attacking. This is me messing up my flash jump, and I get punished for it really badly. As a Blaze Wizard, you outrange Lotus, so you really just keep attacking him from a distance. If he gets near you and starts pushing you, just back up a little bit, wait, and back up. If you're going to burst, and let's say you don't have Jenny iframe, this class is very dependent on having an iframe, Genesis iframe recurring, to burst safely. And you're in Lotus, what you have to do is you have to use your flame barrier, right? The thing that blocks debilitating statuses. If you can see, if I get hit by this debris, I will not get hit. I won't get stunned. I will still take the damage. But this lets me burst, right? I can do this safely. Even if things are going to fall on me. Generally, you want to, if you're going to Inferno Sphere, since you're in the air, you want to get above him. So either flash jump high or do what you can to be above him. And since the range is so big, this is pretty much, you can just do this all day. If it's platforms, just generally either jump or up jump and blink. You can use Inferno Spheres, always stop yourself too. If you really need some charges, Inferno Sphere is okay if you're saving a life, right? Better to survive than and wait a little bit more for your burst than to just die, right? So the reason why I like to have Flashfire is I like to bait Lotus in the corner here, and when he's near, I just TP back, right? And I just keep taking turns. I can now go to the left and outrange him, and I go over and over again. And once he's gonna push me, I Flashfire back. If you put your Flashfire or Burning Conduit on these platforms, it will get removed, so be careful of that. P3 is generally the same game plan. You usually just want to put your Flashfire in the middle. You know, make sure your Conduit's always down. Really do not greed. You know, it's okay if you don't get all your stacks in Inferno Sphere. It's fine if you're not doing that much damage. The main thing you want to do in this boss is survive, right? So just use your backup, just keep attacking. When your burst is up, you can start bursting. And then remember to bind them. Start, you know, let's say the debris coming down, I'm going to let go. I'm gonna back up. I'm gonna keep first things always. And yeah, that is basically how you just kill Lotus. Just do not greed. Walk. If you're going to flash jump, make sure you have a reason to. This applies to every class, but specifically for Blaze Wizard, especially, we don't have mobility options in the air. We have nothing, so the only thing we can do is air stall. I mean, that is a shortcoming of our class, right? You do have E form. It might save you, it might not. Do what you can. You have your Cataclysm. If you need to, iframe. But generally, just either keep your distance or play around him by going back and forth, by walking behind him. Yeah, that is pretty much Lotus. 2 plans: either get behind him when you push, or you keep your distance and attack from afar, right? And when you burst in the air, where you can't reach you. Even if he pushes you, Inferno Sphere will keep your position. If a debris hits you while you're Inferno Sphering, then you will get stunned, as shown here, and then you will fall, so it interrupts you, so be careful with that. And yeah, that's basically how you just defeat Lotus. So, to talk about Damien, this boss is actually kind of built for our class. We don't really struggle with this guy too much since we can always hit him. Yeah, there's not really a general game plan. You can kind of put Flashfire wherever you think is safe and can TP back whenever you need. You just use Blazing Extinction and Phalanx Charge whenever. The reason why our class is built for this is because we can literally just up jump and start attacking him whenever. If you want to Orbital Inferno or just kind of do whatever, you can blink. This boss is really freeform. Just remember to maintain your stacks above your head. Make sure that doesn't go to 7. It's pretty easy. Yeah. One general advice is you can iframe, and while you're iframe, you can actually cleanse. So you can see the buff bar behind the Cataclysm. And I'm cleansed, even if I'm pretty safe. So pretty much every 100 seconds you get a guaranteed cleanse, assuming you're not using Cataclysm for anything else. Yeah, that's pretty much Damien. There's not much to really talk about for P1. Again, you can just burst next to him like this the entire time, and you can't do anything about it. It's pretty free. Yeah. So for P2 Damien, it's generally the same thing, where you can kind of just burst anytime, pretty much. Yeah, just usually you can just put a Flashfire here if you really wanted to. The reason why these balls don't matter at all is because you can just burst over them. You can up jump and then kind of attack. Again, this boss is really free. There's not really much to talk about. Just again, reminder: you can cleanse whenever you iframe. I clearly missed there, but you can cleanse anytime. This boss is not hard. One boss I wanted to cover is Slime. This boss is pretty easy for us, similar to Kalos, where there's a lot of platforms. The guy TPs everywhere. You can just attack him from under or over them. You pretty much almost never die in this boss if you play correctly, because all you do is just, I don't know, you kind of don't get hit at all. There's not really much of a challenge. Just be careful with Slime as with any other class. This red laser will hurt you a lot, or if you're above or in the same platform as them, they red laser. Just be careful. Otherwise, you can kind of attack from wherever, and it's not too bad. It's fine. The next boss to talk about is Lucid. So for Lucid, the strat is to actually put your Flashfire behind the statue here, because none of the golems will spawn where the statues are. This is also good just in general for dragon. In case you see the dragon on the left, you'll just TP back. Otherwise, you can always just use Blink or Inferno Sphere to dodge everything. If there's a mushroom, let's say the mushroom is approaching, you can't kill it in time, you just always TP back. Remember to Orbital Inferno upwards for more hits on the boss. If you're partying, make sure to put the conduit on top of the party. You're attacking, and yeah, I mean, P1 is pretty straightforward. If you have bombs, you can always E-form this. This is the only time I use E-form during the boss. You can up jump these sickles. This is dragon. What I'll generally do is I'll just blink, or you can always TP. You have a lot of different options, right? You can do this, or you just TP back. It's not too bad. Just pay attention to the dragon and the timing. So for P2 Lucid, what I usually do is I'll always put Flashfire on the top here, because generally whenever there's lasers or dragon, I'll always just come back up here. If you're partying, because she always moves, I just generally like putting the conduit in the middle for everyone. Or if you're alone, since conduit affects you anywhere, I like to put conduit on the top here, since golems will never break this platform. If it does break one of this platform with conduit on it, you'll always get refunded the cooldown. Some of the cooldown back, so it's not as punishing. This is dragon. I'll just teleport up here. Use either of the platforms. Sometimes what I like to do on waiting is let me E-form this. Sometimes what I like to do on waiting up here is I'll go to like the left or right edge, and then I'll just cast Orbital Inferno. Yeah. And then this thing will just kind of come down and hit. Usually will hit Lucid. Otherwise, yeah, just make sure you're on the edge here. You kind of use Blazing Extinction. Pretty straightforward boss. Just bind her and then kind of attack. Not too bad. So for Will, what I usually do is, so the thing about Flashfire is that it can only stay in one room. So if you Flashfire and then go to a different room, I'm trying to use Flashfire, I cannot use it, right? So make sure you're in the same room wherever you cast Flashfire. I generally never use it unless I have to for NATO, and I'll show you why. So let's say I put him in a bad position and he's in the corner and he's going to NATO. What I do is I place Flashfire down and then I'll TP behind it. That way I don't get hit from NATO, and that's kind of the only time I ever really use Flashfire. That's pretty much it there is for Will. There's not much else other tech for this fight. Flashfire is only really used in P1. You can use it in P2 for the middle if you get thrown across the map and there's a web in front of you in the corner. Otherwise, yeah, that's it for Will. So to talk about Gloom, usually what I do is I'll put Flashfire in the corner here, and then I'll just dodge everything in the middle or in the left side, and whenever there's trouble, I'll just TP back to the side. Let's say I just am in a really bad leg position, the chains come down, and then just TP back if you really need. The thing about also for Gloom, make sure you pop your buffs a little bit early, especially Transcendent Cygnus' Blessing. Just put Conduit on the ground here if you're alone. Then you can always Origin on the ground. You can also Inferno Sphere from here too. Your Flame Barrier will block anything, and then you can just attack. You know, it'll reach it up here. You can also burst in the air like right now, and it can still count and attack. Otherwise, let's say I get stunned, I can always just TP back. Back to Flashfire. Pretty safely. So for Hilla, I already explained the whole Flashfire attack, but generally I always like placing Flashfire right here. And I like to play corner strat. So I will always just kind of camp over to this side and generally just attack her. Make sure that Blazing Extinction is going to the wall. Just kind of generally hitting her from this angle. If she ever see blue, I'll just TP back and wait, and then just come back. Or just trying to play behind her. Just do what you can. Flash jump behind her and keep attacking. Use your Inferno Spheres, stacks when you're bursting. It's pretty safe. Honestly, this boss is really good for Blazers because you can always just back out every time she's, for example, I'm getting pushed right here. I'll just TP away if I'm ever in danger. Let's say you TP and then she'll TP onto you. Off chance that she'll TP onto you while you're also TPing away, you can just leave. And then just again, just keep camping. It's pretty safe. Yeah, this boss isn't too hard for Playstyle. And you kind of just corner strat and attack. If you ever worry about your health, or you're just in general fear that you're gonna die, just TP back. It's pretty safe. That's pretty much it for Hilla. Even for green and purple attacks, since you're always gonna be in the right, those attacks are never going to reach you if you TP all the way to the left. So, and you always have iframes. You have your healing fams if you have those. E-form. You have a lot of options to not get hit or die from Hilla's attacks. Just make sure you're paying attention. You walk. One thing I do want to call out before the end of the Hilla section, you can actually air stall if she attacks you. One option is by using blink in the air, so you don't, stop whenever you see the strings. And same thing with Inferno Sphere. You can just stop Inferno Sphere to stop your momentum and then not get hit by a string. Generally speaking, for Darknell, I don't have any advice. Honestly, like, this boss is one of the toughest bosses for Blaze Wizard because we really have no options to dash. We have like barely anything. You generally have to just get good to attack from a distance. The general advice is to just keep moving. I put Flashfire on the side. Yeah, just keep moving. Just don't get hit. Good luck. You have your flame barrier if you don't want to get hit by the stuns while you're bursting. Yeah, this boss is really hard for our class, so good luck. You have Jenny iframe to burst as well if you have that. My only real advice is to just keep moving. Use your flash fires to get away. Just watch out for everything. The more you fight this boss, the better you'll get. A lot of these bosses just really take practice. But again, a lot of the advice I just give in general isn't for Blaze Wizard. It's just in general, just any class with no mobility options, you're just gonna have to play like this. So, and yeah, good luck. For Seren, the only general advice I have is mainly for P1, because P2, you kind of just play like every other class. Put your Flashfire near the middle. Make sure that you're not getting hit by the flame pillars. If she ever bananas, this big beam move, just TP back. Make sure that whenever you're TP back, there's no sun column like that. Otherwise, you'll just get hit. Positioning wise, put yourself near the edge of a sun pillar. So like, sun pillars always hit this area, for example, or this section of the map. So I always like to stand like right here pretty much and just wait. And if I see a sun pillar, then I'll just instantly just walk back away from it, or just flash jump away as soon as possible. Just like so. Yeah, that's pretty much all the advice I have. Use your flash fire. Just be cautious of the flame pillars, right? Just generally kind of be not between them, but just near the edge, so you can easily just flash jump away if needed. You can't crouch and then flash fire away. You will get hit by the banana, but for a split second. So if you really want to sacrifice your gauge like that, you can. If it really comes down to that extremity. But generally, yeah, as long as you put your flash fire down, it's pretty safe. Just position yourself correctly. So one thing I want to talk about is the way I play Blaze Wizard. The way I play might be different from how other people play. Each player has their own playstyle, and I think that's what's very beautiful about Maplestory is that, even if everyone kind of has the same kit in a class, you can derive personality from a player based on the way they play, similar to fighting games. The way I play is a little bit different, where instead of relying on walking a lot and bossing, what I'll usually do is I'll actually always be in the air, generally. That way I'm always ready to just flash jump. Because honestly speaking, you don't have enough time to react and then flash jump like this. There's not enough time. But if you're already in the air, then you can generally just get away and flash jump. So for most players, I recommend walking. Just walk. If you're gonna flash jump with intent. But the way I play is I'll always just be ready to just keep attacking. I always do aerial reversals. You know, I'm always backing up and playing. I'm like constantly hopping away. I'm like ready to just continue flash jumping. This is the way I play, right? And it might help you. Right? I don't know if it will. If you prefer walking, then so be it. If you have your own playstyle and it's working, then I recommend that, right? That's the best advice I can give. But yeah, that's the end of my rambling. Reminder that the information I've conveyed in this video is purely from my own knowledge of the class. If there's anything I missed or have explained incorrectly, please let me know. If you got to the end of this whole video, you have my full respect. Hopefully my knowledge dump has taught you a thing or two about this class you weren't aware of. But in any case, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good one.